The maitre d' recognised me immediately as my family walked in to Eclat, the most exclusive French restaurant in the city. I saw the flicker of understanding in his eyes, but he maintained perfect professionalism. "Good evening," my sister Elaine said imperiously. "Reservation for carte party of 4. I hung back, watching my parents and sister do their usual routine, making sure everyone noticed their designer clothes, their expensive watches, their air of belonging. Elaine's diamond necklace glinted under the chandeliers, a deliberate flex of her supposed superiority. "Don't embarrass us, Claire," she muttered, eyeing my modest attire. "This isn't your usual dive bar." They hadn't wanted to invite me to this birthday dinner, but appearances mattered. Can't have people wondering why the eldest Carter daughter wasn't present at her father's celebration. "Right this way," the maitre d' said, leading us through the elegant dining room. I caught the subtle glances from the staff, the small nods of recognition they tried to hide. As we passed a table of socialites, Elaine preened, tossing her hair, oblivious to the staff's knowing looks directed at me. Elaine looked at my simple black dress with barely concealed disdain. "I'm surprised you didn't wear one of your discount store specials, Claire. Some of us have different priorities than designer labels," I replied mildly. "Yes, like barely making rent on that tiny apartment," she smirked. "I bet you had to save for months just for tonight," she added, her voice dripping with mockery. "Do you even know what a tasting menu is?" Mum shot us both a warning look as we sat down. "Girls, please, it's your father's birthday." Dad was already studying the wine list, his face pinched at the prices. "These markups are highway robbery." I bit back a smile, remembering the actual wholesale costs. "Claire probably needs to check the prices before ordering," Elaine stage whispered to Mum. "Wouldn't want her to embarrass herself." "Maybe stick to tap water, Claire," Elaine continued, her smile venomous. "You don't want to max out your credit card." A waiter approached. Michael, one of my best employees. I saw the moment my family dismissed him as just another servant. "Can you even afford this place?" Elaine continued, examining her menu. "Maybe you should just get an appetizer." That's when Michael spoke. "Welcome back, Miss Carter." Elaine's fork froze mid-air. "Excuse me, do you know her?" she demanded, her tone sharp. Michael's smile was serene. "Of course, miss. She's a valued guest." "Your usual table was reserved for another party, but I hope this one is satisfactory." Dad choked on the complimentary water. Mum's menu slipped from her fingers. Elaine's face went from smug to stunned in record time. "It's perfect, Michael," I smiled. "Thank you. Your usual wine, Miss Carter?" he asked innocently, as if he hadn't just detonated a social bomb at the table. "Wait, usual wine?" I sputtered. "Since when do you have a usual anything here?" "Yes, please. The 1990s Chateau Margaux." Dad's face went pale. That bottle cost more than his monthly country club dues. "Claire," Mum managed weakly, "what is going on?" I took a sip of water, enjoying the moment. "Oh, didn't I mention I bought a Eclat 3 months ago along with the entire restaurant group?" "Elaine?" Mouth opened and closed like a fish. "You own this place?" she shrieked, loud enough for nearby tables to turn. "That's impossible. You can barely afford your phone bill." But you live in that tiny apartment. You shop at normal stores." "Because I choose to," I said simply. "Unlike some people, I don't measure success by what I wear or where I live." Michael returned with the wine, presenting it with a flourish. "An excellent choice, as always, Miss Carter. Shall I have Chef Antoine prepare your favourite souffle for dessert?" "Hold on," Elaine interrupted, her eyes narrowing. "You're telling me you're on a first-name basis with the chef? Claire, what kind of scam is this?" "That would be lovely," I smiled. "And please bring us the full tasting menu. It's a special occasion after all." As Michael departed, silence descended on the table. The kind of silence that comes when people realise they've been sneering at the owner of the establishment. My phone buzzed, probably another update about the new location we were opening in Tokyo, but that could wait. Dad cleared his throat. "Claire, if this is some kind of joke, it's in poor taste. Owning a place like this takes real money." Right now, I was going to enjoy watching my family try to process that their poor daughter owned not just this restaurant, but the entire chain of high-end establishments they love to flaunt their wealth in. Sometimes the best revenge isn't telling people you're successful. It's letting them figure it out while they're in the middle of mocking you. Elaine leaned forward, her voice low and accusatory. If you're so rich, why didn't you bail me out when I overdrafted last month? You let me beg. Dad took a large gulp of his water, probably wishing it was something stronger. Elaine was frantically Googling under the table, no doubt looking up the restaurant group's ownership. Me? I just sat back, picked up my menu, though I knew every item by heart, and smiled. Dinner was about to get very interesting. The tasting menu arrived, each course more exquisite than the last. This is probably comped for you, right? Elaine sneered, poking at her caviar. You'd never pay for this yourself. Chef Antoine was showing off tonight, knowing I was at the table. My family sat in uncomfortable silence, picking at their food while trying to process their new reality. So, Dad finally managed, his voice strained. How exactly did this happen? I took a sip of the perfectly aged Chateau Margaux. Remember that wasteful hospitality management degree you refused to pay for? The one you said would never amount to anything because I focused on restaurant management instead of finance, like Elaine? You always were stubborn, Dad muttered. I told you to join my firm, but you chose this. Fantasy. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Elaine suddenly became very interested in her foie gras. Turns out there was a market for revolutionizing high-end restaurant operations, I continued. My company now owns 28 establishments across 3 continents. Mum's fork clattered against her plate. 28, including Le Bistro in Chicago, La Lumiere in Milan, and that little place in Tokyo where you celebrated your anniversary last year, I added casually. You knew we were there and didn't say anything? Mum gasped. You let us think we were special. The one you bragged about getting impossible reservations for? Elaine's face flushed. That's why they seated us immediately when I dropped the Carter name. Indeed, I smiled, though you really shouldn't be rude to the staff there. They tell me everything. Michael appeared with the next course, a perfectly seared scallop dish that wasn't even on the regular menu. Oh, so you're spying on us now, Elaine snapped. That's low even for you. Chef Antoine's newest creation, he announced. He'd like your opinion, Miss Carter, before we add it to the permanent menu. I could see Dad calculating the value of my empire in his head, the same man who told me I was throwing away my potential on restaurants instead of joining his consulting firm. You could have at least shared the wealth, Dad said, his tone bitter. We're family, Claire. The Tokyo location opens next week, I mentioned, sampling the scallop. We're already booked solid for the first 6 months. Tokyo? Mum's voice was faint. But you said you couldn't afford to join us for our Tokyo trip last fall. I was there, I replied, overseeing construction of my new restaurant. I just stayed in my condo instead of the family hotel. A condo? Elaine scoffed. You expect us to believe you own property there too? Elaine's phone buzzed, probably one of her society friends who'd spotted us and spread the word about who really owned their favourite restaurant. Is that why you never moved to a bigger apartment? She asked. Never bought designer clothes? I prefer to invest in things that matter, I said, like paying my staff the highest wages in the industry, providing health insurance and education benefits. Creating something meaningful instead of just showing off wealth. How noble, Elaine sneered. But you still let us think you were a failure. That's cruel. The sommelier approached with another bottle of wine. Miss Carter, that investment group is here again. They're offering to buy the restaurant chain. Tell them what you always tell them, Pierre. I smiled. Not for sale at any price. Dad nearly dropped his glass. Investment group? Goldman Sachs, I said casually. They've been trying to acquire us for months. Offered 15 times earnings last week. The look on his face, the consultant who dismissed my business plan years ago, was priceless. 15 times, Dad choked. And you turned it down? Are you insane? Mum leaned forward. Darling, why didn't you tell us? We've been so worried about you living so modestly. Because success isn't about showing off, Mum. It's about building something real. I gestured around the elegant dining room. Everything I own, I built myself. No family money, no connections, no trust fund. Elaine's face had moved from shock to calculation. So you've been laughing at us this whole time, she hissed, pretending to be poor while we begged for scraps. So, about reservations. Still need to be made in advance? I cut her off. Your name doesn't guarantee special treatment anymore. In fact, I smiled sweetly, you might find some of our establishments mysteriously booked when you call. The dessert cart approached. Chef Antoine's famous souffle paired with a vintage port that cost more than a Lanx designer purse. Happy birthday, Dad. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Elaine spat, humiliating us in front of everyone. I raised my glass. Consider dinner my treat, as it has been every time you've dined in one of my restaurants for the past year. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just owning the restaurant. It's letting them realize they've been unknowingly depending on your generosity all along. The port was excellent, almost as excellent as watching my family try to swallow their pride along with their dessert. Mum's voice trembled. We thought you needed us, Claire. How could you let us believe that? As coffee was served, the dynamic at the table had shifted completely. Gone was Elaine's condescension, replaced by awkward attempts at flattery. Mum kept mentioning friends who would love to invest in my next venture. Dad mostly sat in stunned silence, no doubt thinking of the multiple times he'd bragged about my sister's junior position at his consulting firm while dismissing my little restaurant job. Ms. Carter, Michael approached again. Chef Antoine requests your presence in the kitchen when convenient. The Toki menu needs your final approval. Elaine practically bounced in her seat. Oh, please, Claire, let me see the kitchen, she pleaded, her tone desperate. I want to understand your world. Oh, could I come? I'd love to see. The kitchen is for staff and ownership only, I cut her off politely. Health regulations, you understand. Mum tried a different approach. Darling, you must let us host a celebration. To think our daughter is such a successful restaurateur. I finished. Funny, that wasn't worth celebrating when you thought I was just managing one place, huh? We made a mistake, Mum whispered, tears in her eyes. We're proud now, doesn't that count? The sommelier appeared with a folder. The wine list for Tokyo, Ms. Carter, and Mr. Nakamura called about the Seoul location. Dad's head snapped up. Seoul, opening next summer, I confirmed. Though I'm sure Eileen can tell you all about it. She was just there last month, trying to use the Carter name to get a reservation at my Milan restaurant. Eileen had the grace to blush. I was stressed, she mumbled. I didn't mean to be rude to your staff. I didn't know that the staff would tell me that. Every attempted name drop, every time you were rude to my employees, every complaint about prices would get back to me. I smiled. I know everything that happens in my restaurants. I stood, smoothing my cheap dress, actually a handmade piece from a small Milanese atelier. You've been playing us all along, Elaine said, her voice shaking. You could have told us, but you wanted us to suffer. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to speak with my chef. But it's Dad's birthday dinner, Mum protested weakly, and I've paid for it. As I've paid for every meal you've had in my establishments. I gestured to Michael. Please make sure my family has everything they need. Add the usual gratuity to their bill. Their bill? Elaine squeaked. You're charging us, she gasped. After all this, you're still rubbing it in? Of course, I smiled. Just because I own the place doesn't mean everything's free. That wouldn't be good business, would it, Dad? In the kitchen, Chef Antoine greeted me with his usual enthusiasm, showing me the planned menu for Tokyo. As we discussed wine pairings and seasonal specials, I could see my family through the kitchen's viewing window, huddled in conversation. Their gestures were frantic, Elaine's hands waving, Dad's head bowed, Mum dabbing her eyes. My phone buzzed with a text from Elaine. I'm sorry for everything, for how we treated you. Another from Mum. We were wrong, so wrong. And finally, one from Dad. I never saw it. Your vision, your potential. Can we talk, please? I typed out a single response to all of them. Reservations required, 6 months waiting list, no exceptions. Then I added, and next time, tip my staff properly. They deserve it. Then I turned back to Chef Antoine's brilliant creations, to the empire I'd built while they weren't watching, to the success they'd never seen coming. Later that night, as I walked through my modest apartment, actually the entire top floor of the building, minimally furnished because I preferred it that way, I looked at the framed review from when I'd first bought Eclat. My phone pinged again. Another text from Elaine. I looked you up. It's all true. How could you hide this from us? I didn't reply. Known buyer transforms struggling restaurant into culinary empire. Unknown, underestimated, unstoppable. I picked up my phone and sent one final text to my family. Next time you judge someone's worth, remember the person you're looking down on might actually own the ground you're standing on. I added, and don't expect an invite to Tokyo. My guests respect my staff. Then I opened my laptop to review plans for the Seoul location. After all, success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about continuing to prove yourself right. And sometimes the sweetest taste isn't in the finest wine or the perfect souffle. It's in the moment they realize they've been dining in your success all along. As I closed my laptop, I smiled, knowing their next dinner would taste of regret, seasoned with the truth they'd ignored for years.